Sector clear, sir.
Not so fast, rookie. It looks like you missed one. Well, with this area cleared out, it looks like we got a new order from command. I'm going to reassign you to the new major order so you can help liberate Trandor. I'm going to send you over a list of my favorite primary weapons when it comes to dealing with the bugs. Good luck, Helldiver, and I'll see you when you get back.
Welcome back, Helldivers. Now, in this video today, we're going to go through my top 5 primary weapons when it comes to dealing with the Terminids. And to make things interesting, we're going to exclude the crossbow, the purifier, and the arc blitzer. Now, why am I excluding these? Well, these are arguably probably the best weapons against the Terminids. So if we had a top 5 list, that'd be over half of it already done, and it would have been pretty obvious. So again, to make things a little bit interesting, we're going to brush those aside, and we're going to pull up the next top 5. So I guess technically this is like a top 8 video because I just gave you 3 of them. But anyways, in no particular order, let's get started with number 5. Alright, and starting off the list here at number 5, we're going to talk about the SMG-72 Pummeler. Now, I know some of y'all are thinking, shit. But this weapon has saved my ass more times than I can count. This is a great support weapon and a great complementary weapon to your secondary and stratagem weapon. Now, why is that? That's because of those concussive rounds. For something like a stalker, this weapon here will stun lock them and then make hitting their weak spot, in this case the head, very easy. So for me, the only real negatives with this weapon is maybe that fire rate against something like Shriekers, and obviously when it comes to something like a Bile Spear, because of their medium armor, yeah, this weapon's going to struggle with that. But versus everything else, in the chaff category, yes, the Pummeler is fantastic. So with the Pummeler at number 5, let's go ahead and move on to number 4. Now for number 4 here, I'm going with the Breaker Incendiary Shotgun. I was debating whether to put the Cookout here instead, but the Breaker maybe just has a special place in my heart given how much history this weapon has. Unlike the Pummeler, the Breaker here is really good, again, at just shredding, or I guess I should say incinerating the bug chaff. As long as you have a little bit of trigger discipline and are able to give a little ground to let the fire damage really tick up, yeah, nothing's going to stand in your way. Is this weapon as good as it used to be? No, its ammo economy has taken a little bit of a hit, and that's why I mentioned a little bit of trigger discipline, and this weapon will go the distance for you. So those Shriekers that I was mentioning earlier, yeah, they're not a problem with this weapon. So let's go ahead and move on to number 3. At number 3 here, we have the Punisher Plasma. This weapon is a workhorse weapon when it comes to those Bile Spear or just regular Bile planets. Its explosive damage type and the blast radius makes this thing an absolute monster to anything crawling on the floor. And when it comes to tankier chaff like those alpha commanders or just regular commanders depending on your difficulty type, this thing is excellent at staggering them and keeping them at bay. It has pretty good ammo economy where I don't ever think you're going to run out of ammunition. And hell, this might be one of those weapons where I feel pretty comfortable taking this and really not a strategy weapon, and I think I'll be just fine. I mean, it says a lot about a primary weapon if it can handle something like chargers really easily, on top of blasting away the other 90% of chaff. Now, really the only negatives with this weapon, again, would be, I would say, that blast radius, and then it has a projectile arc, and maybe not a lot of people like that. So being able to get, I would say, accurate shots on something like Shriekers might be a little bit difficult. But getting over that little bit of a skill curb, yeah, this is just one of those weapons that you can't not put it on a list like this. Let's move on to number 2. At number 2, we have the good old LAS-16 Sickle. Now, this thing is basically the only reason why there probably isn't going to be an AR on this list, and that's because this thing does the same thing as an AR, except just better. Now, it does sacrifice some of, I would say, the staggering power that the assault rifles have, but it makes up for that in that fire rate and the damage output it has. Not to mention, again, with trigger discipline and not overheating the heatsink, this weapon will never run out. There's basically no recoil with this weapon, making it really easy to use, and you'll just be mowing through the Terminids from hunters to alpha commanders to warriors, any of them, they're just dead. The only real negative with this weapon is that light armor penetration, and given the other benefits, it needs something to kind of counteract how good it is. But really, with how pinpoint accurate this weapon can be, and again with virtually no recoil, yeah, it's super good. And yeah, there's a reason why the ARs can't get out of this gun's shadow, and this is coming from somebody where I prefer to use the ARs over the sickle, but there's just no denying how good the last sickle is. Now before we move on to number 1, It's not going to be the double-edged sickle. And why is that? Well, the double-edged sickle basically, in my opinion, requires to have that armor passive that gives you fire resistance. So unfortunately, that is a little bit of a knock against this gun. Not a huge one, but enough to keep it out of this top 5 list, because I want these weapons to basically stand on their own. And so the double-edged nature of the double-edged sickle is just, it's not my playstyle and not something I would recommend unless you are bringing that, again, that armor passive. And you know what, this is a great time to bring up some more honorable mentions before we get to that number 1. Another weapon I'm keeping out is the Scorcher, and that's mostly because of its ammo economy and how fast you can just basically run this weapon empty. It was basically between the Scorcher and the Punisher Plasma, and so I gave it to the Punisher Plasma for this video. But don't get it twisted, I fucking love the Scorcher here, and it actually pains me to keep it out of this list here. And the next weapon I want to quickly mention is the Eruptor. This thing just balance-wise, sometimes it's broken, sometimes it's underpowered, and it's always in flux. So I just never know how to feel about the Eruptor, or if I make this video, how long is the Eruptor gonna stay in this state before getting, broken again by the next update accidentally. I like the Eruptor, but yeah, that's why it's not in this top 5. And my last honorable mentions before I end up just going through and talking about all the weapons, the Adjudicator and the Liberator Penetrator. These two weapons are basically, I would say, like the baseline for, I would say, any list that I do, as far as if they are worse than these two weapons, then I usually just don't like to talk about them, or they rank really low. But the Liberator Penetrator and the Adjudicator are both fantastic weapons just because they're pretty easy to use, they have medium armor penetration, and they do plenty of damage to deal with any chaff. If you're a new player and just not really familiar with how, I guess, the enemies work, I definitely would recommend the Liberator Penetrator or the Adjudicator first before I'd say branching out to those more, I would say, different functioning weapons. Now for my number 1 weapon, again, this is in no particular order, but I'm going to give it to the Torture. This is basically our primary version of the flamethrower, the stratagem weapon flamethrower, or the crisper that we have a secondary flamethrower. But the Torture here is our primary version, and this just feels so good against the bugs. I am a huge StarCraft fan, so this is giving a lot of like fire bat or hellbats, I guess, from StarCraft 2. But the fire weapons in this game, they just hit different when it comes to fighting against the bugs. It just feels right. Now, the only real negative with this weapon, I would say, is the fact that, for whatever reason, maybe this is just a me problem actually, I always catch myself on fire with these weapons. And I think it's because of the way I maneuver around when I'm in like combat, and for whatever reason, I always just catch myself on fire. So you got to be careful of that. Also, how close you have to be can be seen as like a negative as well, but given that most of the Terminids they're pretty quick in getting up into your face, the Torture is just one of those perfect answers. Just do a nice quick little spray in front of you, catch everything in fire, give a little ground, and watch them burn, baby. Watch them burn. So Helldivers, that's my top 5 list. If you've made it this far, let me know your top 5 weapons you like to bring against the Terminids. I know with the major order, it's basically split between, do we go liberate a planet for the bots against the bots, or do we go on the other side of the galaxy and go to Trandor to liberate a planet against the bugs? And I didn't think the community would actually choose the bot side, but I guess we do really like our mechs in this game, so I guess I can see why. But yeah, I really thought we were going to rally together to go fight some bugs, because we've been fighting the bots for a fair bit of long major orders lately. But yeah, that's the video. Again, if you made it this far, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and I will see you next time, Helldivers. Peace and take care.